Hey everybody, it's Gregg Bendian here at the ProgCast, and we are always trying to keep things global. International progressive music is happening every day as we speak, and it's been happening in Sweden for decades, particularly coming out of the mind and the hands of my guest today, the keyboardist, composer, all around incredible creative musician, Mats Öberg. Welcome, Mats. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm so glad that we were able to hook this up and to do so with the help of Dan Bornemark, who's known to many of our fans as a gentle giant cipher and
Oh
gentle
yeah, yeah.
expert. Uh, but Mats, I'm so interested in your music and your musical history. I had the pleasure of seeing your band with Morgen Agren perform in New Jersey and in North
Mm.
Carolina. And what an incredible experience it is to hear your music and how it's evolved over the years. But I want to talk a little bit about that evolution and talk about your beginnings because I know you come from a very musical family.
Yeah, I do. Both on mother's and father's side. Um, um, my mother played a little piano, and she sat a lot with me when I was very, very, very small. And I think I was about 1 or 2 years old when I just discovered the piano, and it was one of my. It became one of my favorite toys.
Yes.
And yeah, and you know, I was so fascinated with what you could do with the piano and music in general. So it started very very early.
What was your first musical interest, stylistically or band wise?
Um, Stylistically, it was so many different things at the same time. I was listening to things like Miles Davis, Mahavishnu, uh, Weather Report, Stevie Wonder, the Beatles, Swedish folk music, children's records, and all at the same time. There was no limit. I couldn't see any. What do you call it? I guess I was very open-minded.
So all of this music was just naturally around your environment and your family and coming at you just and normal every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've been told that I refused to go to bed if I couldn't hear Miles Davis when I was about 3 or 4 years old and things like that. So
Wow.
yeah, and and I remember the first time I heard Mahavishnu Orchestra when I was three years old. We had the Birds of Fire album at home, and I was just I got really into it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love the sounds. The combination of violin and guitar and John Hammer's synthesizer. Even though I thought that was a guitar at that time, it felt like when like they had a conversation sometimes. John and John Hammer. So
or an argument,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
a discussion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounded like they were speaking when they were soloing to me.
I'm sure Jan wouldn't mind knowing that you thought he was a guitar.
Yeah, but that I discovered later when I was maybe 9 or 10 that was a synthesizer. When I got into playing synthesizer myself,
What was your first synth?
my first synthesizer. Well, the first one that I ever tried was maybe 8 preset monophonic Korg synthesizer that I borrowed from a music store. My next door neighbor was a bass player named Lennart Jonsson, and he had a lot of contacts with the music stores in Umeå, he let me borrow my synthesizer so I could, discover what that was, and started with a monophonic synthesizer, and then he let me try a polyphonic synthesizer. So so I would know the difference between monophonic and polyphonic. That was when I was about 8, and then I bought my first synthesizer when I was 9. It was a Krumer synthesizer with 2 sounds that I had for a year. But I got bored with that. But at first it was fantastic.
Yeah. So what was really the piano your first love, or were you always interested in just general keyboards?
Piano was my first love, and other kinds of instruments that we had, just harmonicas and toy instruments, music boxes, and everything that just sounded. And but piano was the first thing that I played.
Were you gigging pretty early as well?
I started gigging when I was 9. I did my first solo gigs, playing and singing, and then I started my first band when I was 9, and then I met Morgan when I was 10.
Well, that's a very famous meeting. I know that you've told this story before, and certainly Morgan has been on the program to tell it, but I'd love to hear your side of the story.
Yeah. Well, I had a gig at a place, at a music cafe outside Umeå, and I didn't have anyone to play with, and I wanted to play with somebody that was closer, in my age, because I was almost always playing with people that were older than me, and that was good. I mean, that was great. It was great musicians and so on, but I felt that I wanted to play with somebody closer to my age, and I was told by somebody, there's a guy named Morgen Agren who plays drums, and he's gonna play with you on this gig. And we played 3 songs. I think we met just an hour before the gig, and we tried to find some musical things that we had in common. And I asked him, have you heard the Beatles? Have you heard Stevie Wonder? Have you heard Frank Zappa? And we decided, I think we came to we decided we play Help and Master Blaster and Bobby Brown. That was the first thing we played. I had borrowed a clavinet, and Morgan played drums, and I was singing with a high child voice. And that was just so fun. So after that, we just decided to continue, and have done since then.
That's over 40 years, right?
Yeah. And we had our 40 years anniversary 2 years ago, and we did some gigs, which was really, really fun. It was kind of a comeback for me, because I had been really bad in my ears, and was not able to work at all for a year. So that was kind of a fun, great comeback for me.
And also working with orchestra, right?
Say that again?
You and Morgan were also working with an orchestra.
Yeah, I've been working with different orchestras. I think the first, you mean symphony orchestras?
Yes.
Yeah. The first time I ever played with a symphony orchestra was when I was involved with the Zappa's Universe project in New York, with Joel Thome as the conductor and orchestra leader. The orchestra was called Orchestra of Time. That was the first time I played with a symphony orchestra.
And I know that some of our listeners know that Frank Zappa hosted an evening with the orchestra of our time, playing the music of Edgar Varese.
Yeah.
I was in the audience for that, and it's on YouTube if anyone's interested in hearing Frank Zappa talk about the music of Varese when it's being played by the orchestra of our time and Joel Thome. And I was also at the Zappa's Universe concert. It was you and Morgan and Mike Keneally. I think Steve Vai was on that. Is that correct?
Yeah. On the first show, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did 4 concerts with that, and Steve was on the first one.
So obviously we should talk a little bit about Zappa and his impact on you guys. I know you have a new album out. I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that Zappa was something that you were going to spend a lot of time and energy and
that was when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, a girl that was taking care of me and my brother during the summertime, and she brought a lot of records, and one day she had the Shake Your Booty, Frank Zappa Shake Your Booty album with her, and that was, I think that had just been released then. It was in '79, and I just loved it right away. The combination of everything, beautiful melodies, humor, sound effects, collages, everything. I just loved it. And then I think after a year, I think I had all the 30 Zappa albums that was out then. So I really got into it fast.
Well, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Borrowed records from people and taped them and bought the records for my own money. So yeah, I got really into it.
what was your favorite Zappa from that time?
From what I thought was the favorite album at that time when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, or
Yes.
and maybe I really like listening to One Size Fits All, Roxy Elsewhere, and Uncle Meat, and 200 Motels.
So did you find Zappa's keyboardist to be interesting? Was George Duke someone that you admired?
Oh yeah, very, very, very much. I first heard about George when I was 9, I think. And when I heard Apostrophe and One Size Fits All, and my uncle was a great piano player, and he knew about Zappa also, and he told me that his favorite period with Frank was when George Duke was in the band. So yeah, and so I really liked George way of playing and singing, and I discovered George solo albums when I was 10 or 11. Yeah, 11. I got the when I was 11 years old, I got the I Love the Blues, She Heard My Cry album for my birthday. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
And he's quite an interesting role model as a composer, key player, and producer and singer.
Oh yeah. And I met George 4 times actually.
Wow.
And it was always great fun meetings. And the last time was a year before he passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So was he aware of your work?
I gave him some records actually. I don't know what he thought about them, but he said, yeah, cool, I will listen to them. And so yeah. He was very nice to me, really great person.
Oh yeah, he's quite a sweetheart. Everybody has great memories of George Duke.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in fact, I recently had the honor of interviewing Ralph Humphrey
Mm-hmm.
shortly before he passed,
Mm.
and he spoke very highly and very fondly of that Roxy and Elsewhere period.
Yeah. Yeah. And right after George passed, um, both me and Morgan we were involved in a tribute concert to George with the Norrbotten Big Band and the Norrlands Opera Symphonic Orchestra. George was going to come to Umeå in Sweden and play with them, but then he got sick and passed, and then they decided to do the concert anyway as a tribute, and I got to play what George was supposed to play.
What was the material?
What?
What was the material?
The material?
Yes.
And that was mostly stuff that George had written for the Metropole orchestra in Holland in 2009, I think. That's when a guy from Umeå named Erik Palm met George, and they discussed doing this concert in Umeå. So yeah, but that was an unbelievable experience doing that concert, and also with Byron Miller on bass and Napoleon Murphy Brock on vocals and Josie James on vocals from George formal band.
Mm.
And me and Napoleon we have played a lot together as a duo.
Oh, wow.
Recently. Yeah.
And is that playing Zappa material with Napoleon?
Yeah, Zappa material and other things that Napoleon likes to sing, jazz standards and yeah, different things. We used to mix it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we were in Hamburg in Germany last year and did a concert that actually became an album. It came out last fall.
What's the name of that album?
What?
The name of the album?
It's called Zappa Spiel for Bach or something. It's an album in a series of different. I can't remember the exact name of the record.
Yeah, Napoleon's great.
Yeah, fantastic.
So you were studying classical piano, or were you just studying piano technique? What was your training like?
I played. I studied classical piano when I was about 9, 10, 11, 12, and played some Bartok and things like that that I liked, that I wanted to play. And then when I moved to Stockholm and studied at the academy, I took lessons from a fantastic piano player that recently passed named Stefan Nilsson for 2 years. That was very important to me.
I'm curious, what was the learning process like for you? Because I understand that you're not able to see the sheet music, but your ears are incredibly developed. So how did you go about learning Bartok and these kinds of things?
I was given tapes. Yeah, and my piano teacher also showed me how to play it. And so we went through it together, and I was listening to tapes at home, and I just took it out by ear.
Yeah, it's incredible what the ear can do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with Rachel Flowers as her drummer and music director, and her hearing is just on another level, and her understanding of the music is on another level.
Mm. I've never met her. I would really like to do that one day.
Oh, I'm sure she would enjoy meeting you.
Mm.
It's very interesting to me just how you're able to grasp and reach so much music, and what can come through the ears and go into the hands and go into the body. and
Mm.
and really that some people would think that there's a barrier, but for you really there's no barrier because you can hear it all.
Yeah.
Did you start composing at an early age, Mats?
Oh yeah. Composing without even knowing that I was composing. You just sit and play and make music. And I think that I think I did that from the beginning. Just playing, playing and making music.
Were you recording these things?
Yeah, there are recordings. I have a lot of old cassettes from when I'm very 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 young. When I'm maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old, and I'm sitting and making up songs with lyrics that doesn't mean anything, but I just do it.
Hmm. And so when you started working with Morgen, just by that chance meeting, did you immediately make plans to have a band with him and collaborate?
Yeah, I think we decided that immediately. I think just a few weeks after we did that first gig, neighbor of mine named Sivert Öholm, who was a TV personality in Sweden, he got to know that me and Morgen had started playing together, and he wanted us to be on his TV show. And so that was our second gig, and then we have just kept going, and we've had so many different settings, but always based on my and Morgen's what's the word? It has always been our thing.
So
yeah.
Is it like a 50-50 thing where you bring in an idea and then he might develop it, or vice versa?
You mean when we make music, or?
Yeah, are you composing collaboratively, or are you bringing in something and then he's adding to it? How does it work?
Both. I think in the beginning we mostly we jammed things, and recorded what we did, and listened to it afterwards, and sometimes we heard something. This was a great part. Let's build something on this. And then later, I think we started to more or less make music on our own. I would bring more music to Morgen, and he would bring music to me, and then we just used to mix that. And yeah, we've done both ways, and improvised a lot. Some gigs we've done, we haven't even decided what we're gonna do. We just somebody start doing something, and then we're out on a journey and see what happens.
Yeah, that's a fresh and exciting way to make music.
Yeah, and sometimes you get surprised when you listen to it afterwards. Oh, did that really come from us? Or we don't really understand how did this get done, or some improvisations.
Well, when I think of your work with Morgan, I think of its rhythmic complexity and the rhythmic language that you both share. And I'm so curious, is that coming out of Frank? Is that coming out of contemporary classical music? Where is that rhythmic impetus coming from?
Um, don't know really exactly where that element comes from, but maybe just a lot of music that we've heard, and I think Morgan has been more into the rhythmic side maybe than me. I've been more like maybe more melodic. Uh, yeah, I think so. Morgan has based a lot of his stuff on grooves and rhythms and sounds. And I've been more like a melodic composer for the most part.
You know, there's so much interesting music that's come out of Sweden, and I recently had the pleasure of interviewing on Cruise to the Edge Moon Safari, and they were singing incredible harmonies and very natural kind of pop rock prog mixture. And I'm wondering what coming up, if you were able to find growing up any number of progressively minded Swedish musicians, because it seems to me like it's a very culturally advanced place, Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of great bands that started in the 70s. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with a group called Samla Mammas Manna.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay. With Lars Holmer on keyboards uh, and accordion and doing most of the compositions. And I think he was a strong force. And a group that also played when we met in North Carolina in 2004 called 30-åriga kriget.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, well, yeah, they played before us, I think. Yeah. And yeah, it's been a lot of great bands in that direction in Sweden.
That's great. I wish that more of those bands would come to the US.
Yeah.
So what's the concept for you of this new album that you had? You have a new album that came out this year in April. What is it called, Mats?
It's called Visa från inneröra. It's in English. It's hard to really translate it, but the story behind it is I've had a lot of difficulties with my hearing recently. It got really worse 3 years ago, and I thought I was gonna stop playing forever because it was so bad. Uh, but anyway, it started to come music, and when I had about nine songs, I felt this is going to be an album. And so that's when I called Dan Bornemark, who's the producer of the album, and I asked him if he wanted to help me to produce and arrange and just help me with this album, because he had sent me a lot of records that he had done, and I was listening to that and I felt this is really great. His way of arranging and producing would fit very good with my music too. So so I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he said yes. And when I got a little bit better, we started to record slowly, and yeah, it's been taking 2 years, and now it's out. It's fantastic. It feels fantastic. I'm really, really happy with it.
And it's available on Bandcamp. It's available on Spotify, all the streaming platforms. Yes.
Yeah, and it's going to be released as a physical CD now next week, and we want to do a vinyl also. Many people want to have a vinyl.
Do you have a physical copy of the CD?
Not yet. We're going to get it next week.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a CD guy.
Yeah, me too. And vinyl and all of it.
Oh yeah.
Even cassettes today.
Cassettes are coming back.
Yeah, I've always been using cassettes.
Yeah. I don't know. I had to jettison my cassettes when I moved because it was just too much physical media. But I do like the cassette sound more than I like even vinyl sound.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that there was a Miles Davis box set that came out a half a year ago from, I think, recordings from 83, 84, and some of that has been taken from cassettes, and it sounds really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally I think cassettes are better sounding than DATs.
Yeah, warmer, fatter, more fat.
For sure.
Rounder sound.
Yeah. Yeah, DATs you have to really work with afterwards and try to get them to warm up and sound fuller.
Yeah.
So do you have any plans to play shows now with this new material, or what is your current?
Yeah, we're going to do a big concert at the Umeå Jazz Festival the 28th of October. And it's going to be with most people that are playing on the record. It's on the album, it's 22 musicians. It's different people on different tracks. So but me and Don we'll put together a band that really feels good now for this, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully there will be more shows in the future. And I can't really do gigs as often as I could before because of my ear problems, so I don't have that as much energy as before. So but it's getting a little bit better and more stable, it feels like now. We just hope for the best.
I'm curious if you have 22 people playing on this record, what's the process for making something like that come together?
Well, I really had the idea that I didn't want to have one particular band through the whole album. I wanted to get the musicians that I really heard in my head, that I wanted to have Morgan on some songs, and Mike Keneally on one song specifically, and then Don has also brought in people that he used to work with that are completely new to me. So that's been really fun and fresh. And his Don's daughters, Signe and Joris, has really brought a lot to the album with their vocals, their voices. That has really, I think, lifted the music to a new dimension. And yeah, they're fantastic. And Joris also plays violin on 2 tracks. And we have horns, a girl named Emma Wallström who plays French horn, and that Don has worked with before. And yeah, it's I think it's a very fresh sounding album. The result, how everything has become.
Seems like it might be even orchestral at times or chamber orchestra.
Yeah, or maybe uh, I haven't really thought about that, but it's more I think more like my imagination, how I just imagine how I hear music in my head, and um, very I think open-minded.
I think that's such an important part of progress in music is being open to so many things that you'll never run out of food. You'll never run out of uh, material that can feed your imagination.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that this album I think really really combines a lot of influence that I've had through the years. Also, it's not now all things are coming together. You know, music experiences that I've had with different bands, and it's like all of that has come together with this album.
Well, that's what happens after you reach a certain point, right? It's all on the table.
Yeah, yeah,
Why hold anything back?
exactly.
Mm-hmm. And this is different from your music that you make typically with Morgen, yes?
Yeah, I think so. Although Morgan is playing on 3 tracks, um, but I felt that this is not music for a Mats and Morgan album. This is going to be my album, and that's what it felt like after I had about 8-9 songs. I was not really sure from the beginning. No, maybe this is a Mats and Morgan album. No, this is my album.
Mm.
Mm.
And you're calling all the shots and you're arranging everything and you're basically sending people material to learn, yes?
Yeah, although Dawn has really helped a lot with the arrangements on this album also, and brought his imagination, you know, music imagination and playfulness to the music.
You also have a kind of sense of humor in your music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We always, me and Dawn always are dealing with humor. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
in just in everyday life.
Well, that's how we get
and that comes out in the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have a sense of humor, I don't know how you can get through everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, Matt, it's such a pleasure to speak with you finally. We've been talking about this for months, and I'm so glad that we're able to promote your new album, which I encourage people to go and listen to if you're fans of progressive music and Matt's and Morgan. Well, this is a different color, a different kind of setup where Matt's is working here with Dan Bornemark, and we have a different way of looking at his musicality. Any plans for coming to the US?
No plans at the moment, but I would love to. I would love to do something in the US and in Japan and places like that in the future. But at the moment there's no plan, nothing at the moment. But we'll see. Hopefully.
I hope so, because
Yeah.
seeing you guys play at New Jersey ProgHouse is etched in my memory. One of the most impressive bands that I've seen in progressive music, and so people got to hear that. They got to see it live, I think, to really get the full experience of what you guys are into.
Mm. Right now, when me and Morgan do our thing, we work as a duo. It's not a full band anymore, but we are in a way like a full band.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of music coming from 4 limbs, 8 limbs. So are people able to find your tour dates? Do you have a website? Where can people find your home base?
Yeah, there's no tour dates uh, at the moment, and there's only a few gigs. But me and Morgan will have a gig the 9th of September in Sundsvall at a club called Pipeline in Sweden, and that's what we have in the future. And then me and Dan Bornemark and Signe and Joris, his daughters, we have a gig at a jazz festival in Ystad in Sweden the 5th of August, and then it's the gig I just talked about in Umeå the 28th of October with the full band. So that's what I have in the future.
No, that's good to know, because we do have Swedish listeners and fans of the podcast checking it out. And I hope that they will come and hear you playing in Sweden, because it's really a treat to be able to hear this music played live. And in general, please, progressive music is best enjoyed live. I know everyone loves their CDs and their streaming, but you got to support live music. And these guys are out there doing it in Sweden. So I'm hoping everybody will go check it out. And I want to thank you, Mats. This has been such a pleasure to finally have a chance to catch up with you. I know we've been around a lot of the same shows, but now we finally get a chance to talk. And I want to thank Don also for helping us to get this working technically. And thank you to everybody who's been listening over the years. We're coming up on our 3rd anniversary, and you can always send comments to bendianmusic.com. And I always love reading your comments and hearing what people think about the program. It's been a pleasure and a joy. And Mats, I hope that we can get together sometime in person and maybe make some music.
Yeah. And I say the same. It's been a really great pleasure doing this, and glad you like the album, and thanks for having me on this show.
My pleasure, sir. And continuing on, and we'll be staying in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And this has been Gregg Bendian and Mats Öberg on the ProgCast. Please hit us up on Patreon if you are so inclined, and look for us always on YouTube and all the streaming platforms. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you.
So what does this title mean? You're alluding that it's very complicated or difficult, but I'm so curious what the title of the album means to us.
Yeah, easily translated, it's called Music or Songs from the Inner Ear. It's called Visa från Inneröra. It's a kind of a humoristic play with another title of a Swedish song called Visa från Utanmyra. But the title came from one of the musicians that are playing on the album, called Alde Möller, a multi-instrumentalist who I've done a lot of things with in the last 25 years or so. And when I played that tune from him, he asked me, what's the name of that title? Visa från Inneröra or what? And I said, yeah, that's a perfect title. And then Don thought it was the most perfect name of the album because of my, the history of the music, how it came, during my worst time of life, really. I had such a big problem with my hearing and tinnitus, and really horrible tinnitus attacks. So I thought I was gonna stop playing music, but this music, it was like, I have to do this anyway, otherwise I get mad. So, and so this, it was like the music just had to come out.
I know that feeling very well. Even if you
Mm.
feel challenged physically, the music still wants to come out.
Mm. And some of the music, I think when I started to play, it felt like the music just started to play by itself. It just had to come out. It just poured out.
Music is a force. It's undeniable. It will not be denied.
Yeah. And some of the music I dreamed also, just parts of it, and then when I woke up, I just, oh, what was that? And then I finished the rest of the music at the piano.
So it's going on in your imagination all the time.
I think so.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.